Welcome into the episode of Patrick Jones Baseball. On this week's episode, Nathan and I are sitting down and we're talking about some of the things that you should be doing in season to help you get recruited. So we're talking about things to do on the field, things to do off the field, and maybe more importantly, also what not to do, what you don't want to be doing. Hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Hey, Patrick.
Nathan, what's going on, man?
So the college season has started. There are games on ESPN. Kids around the country in high school are starting their seasons soon. We're moving into a different phase when it comes to the college recruiting process for kids and their families who are high school players, or for guys who are starting their college seasons in their JUCO, thinking about what should they be thinking about and doing right now as we're transitioning from off season into actual playing games.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things going on. And I think that the main thing to consider is college coaches are now in season themselves. And so what that means is they're really busy. They're really busy. There's a lot of things going on, not just within their team, but maybe off the field too. And so for one, it's important not to panic if they don't get back to you right away. Like, let's say maybe you've already been talking with a college coach or have been having conversations with him, and then out of nowhere he's not responding as fast, or it's taking him a while. That's completely normal because he has a million things he has going on right now. Because the main thing you got to understand too is these guys are, especially at the higher levels, they're hired and fired based on wins and losses. So they won't even, they're not going to have you as a recruit to begin with if they don't actually play well their own team this year. So I think that's something to just to remember. And then I think probably just I wouldn't say reach out every week to update them. I'd say every other week, probably every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, especially this time of year in season, just because they're so busy. And like I said before, don't worry so much about if they respond or not right away. And when I say update, if you've already been communicating with them, I would just use that communication method, whatever that is, whatever that channel is. If you haven't been communicating with them, I would say if you can DM them, I would DM them on X, or email is going to be the best way to go about it. So those would be the two main ways. And then lastly, the most important thing is you play well, right? I mean, you can have all these tactics in the world, the best tactics in the world. If you don't actually go out and focus on the main things, which is you playing well, then none of this other stuff is really going to matter. And remember, I was watching recently the Michael Jordan documentary on Netflix, which obviously is phenomenal. And, The Last Dance, for those who haven't seen it, that's what it's called. And one of the things he talks about on there is like, look, like everyone's, the brand this, the Jordan brand this, and all these endorsement deals. And I got all this, that, but like, look, at the end of the day, the only reason I got all that stuff is because I produced on the court. And I think that's the thing you got to always keep in mind is all this other stuff will happen if you produce on the field. And so it's the exact same concept.
Yeah. What about so if you have an existing thread, right? So just use that same thread as an email thread or same DM thread if you have existing conversations. What if you don't have an ongoing conversation with a coach? What should you be doing?
If you have not contacted or been in a communication at all with the coach, then I would say if you can DM them on X, that's probably the best way, just because their email is just everyone gets so much inbound messages. It's easy to get overlooked. But if you can't DM them, then I would email them. That's gonna be the next best thing to go. And when it comes to emailing a coach or sending them, it's normal to want to just tell them everything, every little metric. I mean, I was the other day, I saw someone they're posting about their vertical jump and their horizontal. I mean, I don't even know what a good vertical jump is for a baseball player or how that necessarily translates to anything. So I think the thing is just keeping it simple, giving them your stats, and then giving them a few of the metrics that are important if you're a position player or a pitcher. Anything that's verified too. That's the other thing I would say is the reason why PBR or perfect game can be valuable is because it's a third party. It's not you or your dad doing the 60 at a track. It's verified by someone else. And so whether it's the exact perfect time or not, it doesn't matter. It's a third party. So it's more reliable and trustworthy. So if you have any of those metrics, and I would put that in, or a PBR link at all, I'd put that in there. And then like I said, be patient. I would, if you don't hear anything back within a month, I'd send a follow-up on that same email. And if you don't hear anything back after that, I mean, there's over 1,000 college baseball programs. So I think at that point, it's just time to move on.
Yeah. But just because they're in season, though, we shouldn't stop doing outreach to coaches.
No, 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 no. You definitely shouldn't stop. I mean, I just got a text. I was telling you before we started recording, and today's February 19th. I just got a text from a Division I head coach this morning about a player. So I mean, they're obviously still in the hunt. It's just the timing's going to depend on. It might be they have time when they're on the bus on a road trip. Today's the Thursday, so this particular team is they're I got an 8 hour bus ride, so they have time
Yeah.
there, or maybe it's on their off day or something like that. So it's really just going to depend a little bit on each program, but they will have time here or there. It's just catching them at that right time and being patient, knowing that hey, if it's not within that time, they're going to be pretty busy doing other stuff.
Yeah. Is there any advantage to reaching out to assistant coaches other than head coaches? Is there a particular person that you should
Yeah,
target?
that's another really good question. I would say for the most part, I probably wouldn't reach out to the head coaches. I would try to find especially if someone on the website has the title recruiting coordinator, that's the one you want to be reaching out to. The only thing that I would say might be different is if you're a pitcher, then I would reach out as well to the pitching coach specifically. So I would say that's the main things that they're the main people that I would reach out to. There's nothing wrong with reaching out to the head coach, but some head coaches aren't involved at all in the recruiting process, and then other coaches are. So that example I gave of that coach, that head coach who reached out, he just took over the program, so he's having to micromanage a little bit of everything right now, as he should, just because everything's so new, and he's trying to turn things around within that program. But I would say that for the most part, a lot of the head coaches they delegate that to one of the assistants or all the assistants.
If for those who may not know, what is the title recruiting coordinator in a college program? What does that person do?
The recruiting coordinator, I mean, they identify, they organize. One of their main jobs is recruiting. So, for example, let's just say you have a pitching coach, and then you have a lot of times you'll sometimes see like an associate head coach slash recruiting coordinator, where it's that associate head coach slash recruiting coordinator. He has a lot of say. He pretty much might have even final say pretty much on the recruiting aspect on who they decide to bring in. He's organizing everything from a recruiting standpoint. He's telling the other assistants where they need to go in the summertime to go watch games. He's the one who maybe organizes all the data input on in whatever system they're using. I would say that's kind of the main jobs of the recruiting coordinator, just the organization, identifying players, and it's more of a time thing too. Like they're always thinking about recruiting. They're always reaching out to different coaches, travel coaches, talking to players themselves on the phone and bringing them to campus, that type of a thing.
Yeah. Is that the person that if they're doing visits to go see high school players, is that the person most likely to be going to do that, or is it going to be the head coach?
No, no, no. It's going to be them. It's going to be them. Yeah, the,
Yeah.
the the head coach isn't going to be doing that. I mean, the head coach will meet with them once that player comes onto campus for a visit or something like that. But you won't. I don't see very many head coaches out and about in the summertime recruiting. Some of them, but not all of them.
And definitely not in the middle of their season.
No, definitely no,
Yeah.
definitely. Not. I mean, I take that back. There is a couple again. There are a couple even where we are in Ohio, head coaches, Division I coaches, where they kind of run everything. They do everything, and so that particular head coach will go out and recruits really hard, and so he'll go. I mean, I'll see him everywhere, but that's not. I wouldn't necessarily say that's the norm, especially at the Power Four level.
Yeah. So you're a high school kid, you show up to your game, and there's some person in the stands who clearly appears to be uh, a, a coach or a recruiting coordinator or somebody like that. Maybe they're there to watch one of your teammates. Maybe they're there to watch somebody from the other team. That could be intimidating for high school players. That's the kind of thing that could help them or actually could get in their heads and then they perform poorly. What advice do you have for high school players when a coach shows up to their game?
The best piece of advice is you have no idea what they're looking for. You think you know because you've been trained to believe and think that getting hits, striking guys out, whatever it is, whatever your position is, whatever outcome you think is important, that's what you are trained to believe is good. So if you do that, then it's good, and they're more likely to want you. But the reality is you have no idea what they're looking for. I've seen players go 0 for 4, 0 for 5, and then the coach after the game calls him up and offers him a scholarship because he liked the body. So they had bat speed and there's a ton of upside. And he thought that I mean, listen. At the end of the day, it's baseball. You're not going to if Shohei Ohtani played high school baseball, there would be a game he would go 0 for, if you think about that for a minute. And so
Yeah.
just knowing now he wouldn't do it often, obviously, but there would be a game. Like it's just the way the game is. And so, but I guarantee you, if you went to that game and you saw him play, even if he did go 0 for, you could tell, okay, looking at this guy's body, looking at his bat speed, looking at how his movement is in the box, looking at, I mean, there's so many things you could see that would make you still interested, even though he didn't get a hit or even get on first base. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing to remember from a player standpoint. And that's why it's so important to always, if you hit a ground ball, to just always run hard through first base, because that's one of the tools that they're looking for is speed. And it's hard to be able to evaluate speed or quantify speed other than the 60 time, which whoever runs a 6 yard dash on a field ever. But that home to first time is so important. And so if that's why anytime you put the ball in play, even if it's a swinging bunt, if it's a ground ball, whatever, like you run as hard as you can through first base. So again, you think that they're not going to want you because you just hit a ground ball. But the reality is they might look down at their stopwatch and say you just ran a 4.2 or 4.15 or something crazy. Like now they're actually really interested. They care as much about the ground ball. They see that you do have that tool as a speed or speed
Yeah.
as a tool. And so I think that's something to keep in the biggest piece of advice is just you just have no idea what they're looking for. And everyone's different. I'll give you another good example. And this is even at the professional side, is there's a pitcher, Carlos Estevez. He was an all-star last year, I believe, for the Royals. And he told this story. I saw he was on a podcast. It was a Spanish podcast. And he told this story of how when he went to a tryout, when he was obviously much, much younger, 10, 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was. And there was a scout there that told him that basically you're a piece of crap and you're never going to amount to anything. And he didn't say that. He actually used some worse words than that. And then that same day, a scout came up to him, another scout came up to him and said, I think you're going to end up playing in the big leagues. So he went from showing up to this tryout, this workout. His dream just got crushed by one scout saying, you're never going to amount to anything. You're a piece of crap. And then an hour later, another scout comes up to him and says, you think you got a ton of talent. I legitimately think you're going to play in the big leagues someday. He didn't do anything different. He was a pitcher, so his bullpen was his bullpen that day. But sometimes what one scout thinks or one evaluator thinks is completely different than the other one. Now, the second evaluator, the second scout ended up being right because he was, been in the big leagues now for a long time and was an all-star this past year and things like that. But that happens so much more than people realize, just because everyone is looking for something a little bit different, and you catch a guy on a good day versus a bad day and whatever it is. And so I think that story should resonate with a lot of people who have played at a higher level, because if you look at even back at the draft, I mean, there's players who will never make it above AA given millions of dollars. So everyone loved them. And then there's other players who weren't first round picks who ended up playing a long time in the big leagues. And so I guess the long answer to your question is the biggest piece of advice is you have no idea what they're looking for. So making sure you're playing as hard as you can is the most important thing.
Is it true that you never know who's watching and you never know, even from the moment you get off the bus?
Definitely. Yeah. And I think there's a little bit of an art to that for some coaches, college coaches, because let's face it, if a kid knows a college coach is in the stands, he's clearly there to watch him play, or a scout's there to watch him play, he might act a little bit different than if he looks out behind home plate and doesn't see anybody there. So yeah, there is an element to that. I think there's some coaches who maybe they might pretend not even to be paying attention to what's going on the field if there's multiple fields at once, for a couple different reasons, but that could be one reason too. So yeah, you never know. And I mean, sometimes I'll even go to games of kids who I'm working with, and I won't tell them at all that I'm coming, or they won't even know until after I already left and send them a message after the game, just because I want to see what they're like when they don't think anyone's there watching them. Because then you really know what type of player they are.
What kinds of things are you looking for in those situations?
kind of what I was alluding to before. I'm not even looking for necessarily for me personally, because at that point, I already have an idea of what I think the player can do from a skill set standpoint. But I'm more so just looking at like how serious does he take the game? Does he play hard? Is he having fun? What are his reactions after he gets out? What are his reactions if he's a pitcher and somebody behind him makes an error? Because that's makeup. That's how, and makeup is, it's people think makeup is just whether you're a good kid or a bad kid. It's not that's not really it. You can be an amazing kid and actually not have great makeup. I mean, that's it, there's an element to it is what type of a person you are, of course, to that, but it's also deeper where it's how do you deal with failure? Are you a competitor? When you go 0 for 3, that fourth at bat, are you walking up to the plate still looking like the guy and really confident and looking to do damage, or are you completely defeated at that point? Because those are the things that long term will determine your success as a player more than your 60 time or something like that. So I think that's the thing that I'm looking at is that trying to find that figure out the makeup piece. I found anyway that it's easy to for a player to show that they have good makeup when things are going well. They're going to be cheering on their teammates. They're going to be happy to be there. Their parents are happy. Everyone's happy because they're doing well, but you don't really know what they're like until things start to you know, hit the dirt a little bit and start to struggle. And then at that point, then you have more of an idea of who they are and that type of a thing. But it's very hard to do because if you're a good high school player, you really shouldn't be struggling that much, especially when you're facing the competition you're facing. So you may not see a kid fail a ton unless they're in the summer facing other really good players. And so that's what makes the makeup piece hard to evaluate. But anyway, again, long-winded answer, but that's what I'm looking for when I'm going to watch a kid play.
There are I'm forgetting the podcast guest you had on, but one of your it was a recruiting coordinator who said there are hints, there are clues that are left behind, and he was talking about like how does it get, like he said I can get a sense of a kid's arm between innings when they're just throwing the ball around. Even if he never gets a ground ball, I can see what kind of a player this is. Not only that, but like what kind of a kid he is and how serious he's taking that. He can have fun, but
Yeah.
is he just picking it up and lobbing it back over there, or is he getting reps? That kind of stuff.
Well, and I think the other thing too is people think that if the coach is and the college coach isn't on the fence, hands on the fence, clearly watching everything, that he's not paying attention or he's not watching that's so far from the truth. Again, there's an art to it as like you don't need to a coach doesn't need to be sitting first row right behind the net to be able to see everything. They might move or walk around a little bit or act like they're checking their phone or whatever, and they're just walking to a different part of the field just to see what that player's like interacting with their teammates in the dugout after an out or something like that.
Yeah. How important is that makeup stuff to college coaches?
Well, it's huge. It's kind of one of those things where if you're, I mean, let's face it, if you're the best player in the country, there's going to be schools that are willing to overlook maybe the makeup a little bit more than if you're a player who's, the 200th ranked player in the country or 400th, whatever it is, for getting into, rankings. So I think that's always going to be technically true in whatever it is. I remember Yasiel Puig. Here's an example. Yasiel Puig, who didn't obviously play college baseball, but played in the major leagues and insane amount of talent. And, off the field, definitely had some issues and even in the locker room, things like that. When he was playing well, hey, they were willing to put up with all that stuff. The second he stopped playing well, you started seeing him go from team to team to team. Now he's in Mexico playing. Now he's everywhere. And so I think that's the thing, too, is it's a slippery slope to not have good makeup, even if you're really talented, because the second you stop producing, they're looking for ways to get somebody else in there. But for the normal players, the 90% of players and people who are listening to this, it's everything. And even if you are that talented, I think Derek Jeter's a phenomenal person to emulate and look up to for kids. You talk about a guy who did it the right way for 20 plus years in the biggest city on the biggest stage and never was, quite frankly, really did anything wrong. It seemed like anyway. I remember he went 0 for 33, 0 for 32 one time. And then I think he hit a ground ball to shortstop and ran a 4.25 down to first base, hustling his butt off, was getting booed, went into the dugout, undid his batting gloves, put him up in the deck, or in the cubicle, took off his helmet, put it in, rested it in the cubicle, walked up on the top step and started cheering on his teammates after he just went 0 for 33 and is getting booed. That is makeup. Parents, are you tired of spending money going from showcase to camp, not even knowing if a coach is even looking for your son's position or even knows his name? One of the reasons that I started my college baseball recruiting service is to help guide families throughout the recruiting process so you're not having to waste money and time going from showcase or camp to camp. If you're interested in hearing more about how I can help your son, head to patrickjonesbaseball.com and fill out the form. That's patrickjonesbaseball.com. Fill out the form right on the homepage, and I'll be in touch. All right, back to the podcast.
So that's on the field. Should kids continue to be, how active should they be on social media during this period?
I would say social media piece, you're going to have to, this is where having a parent, coach, somebody who can help you is very important because you obviously can't video yourself during the game. So I would say if you can get some good high quality video clips of you once a week would be plenty. Once a week would be good. And just making sure that it's actually something you can see where it's not way behind home plate and it's hard to see anything. So if you can get it once a week, I think that's the perfect amount.
Yeah, I know. And one of the things I'm hoping to get for my team this season, as we move into the school season, is I'm trying to reach out to a couple of the other people within the school district who are teachers who do like media and production and that kind of stuff, to see if I can find some students to come out to the games and get some video of my kids playing. So stuff like that, I think, is just thinking creatively about some options that you might have available to you, even if you don't, have that parent who's, good with the camera. There might be options like that if you could pursue them.
Yeah, when I say good with the camera, I mean you don't need to go and buy a specific camera for this or anything. Your iPhone is
iPhone.
plenty good. It's plenty good. And it's like anything else. I mean, you start doing something that you've never done before. Maybe it's not perfect right away, but if you keep doing it, it's going to get a little bit better. So I think that's something I think is just low hanging fruit for players to be able to do if they can again get somebody else to do that.
Yeah, most of the teams that I've coached anyway, there's a couple parents who will sit there and take. If I just ask them, they'll take video of kids and
I
send
have
it
a
around.
buddy actually who works for Perfect Game, and what he does, which I think is really smart, is he'll bring 3 or 4 different cameras and he'll set them up before the game station. So they're stationary, they're clipped on somewhere from different angles to
Yeah,
get seeing a right-handed hitter, left-handed hitter, and then I forget where else he does it too. And then so that way he doesn't have to worry about anything during the actual game, and it's good. It's good quality because he's put them up specifically to get the specific angles, gets a right-hander or left-hander. And then after the game, then he can just go and collect them all, and he has all the clips and the video, all the video and everything right there, and then he just clips them and edits them up right there. And that way, during the game, he can just watch the game. Because I
yeah,
think that's the thing too, is I get it from a parent standpoint, where they're at a game, like they don't want to be full time, videographer as well, and that, they also just want to watch their kid play too, which I get that. So I think that could be another good
yeah,
way of doing it too, if you don't have access to the Aware system at your field or something like that.
yeah. But I did was to try and get something better than that, like way back fisheye lens on the Game Changer stream, because that's tough to see
It's tough to
in
see, yeah.
most schools.
Getting the Aware system's probably the best thing.
If we can, yeah, if you're at that type of field. So if you're at that type of field and you have that system, that's a bonus.
Hey, we got to get Dave Chappelle to donate
Oh,
to
seriously,
the
seriously,
Elephants,
seriously.
yeah.
We're working on fundraising for a new field up here, so we have all those things on our dream list. It's like, look, this would get a field, and then here's all the extra things we want. Saw we went and saw the Game Changer people who have some of that, like next level stuff in the queue at ABCA in January. What about just like you said that? So ultimately, it comes down to producing. When we started, what if you get in a slump? What if you're having a tough time? What if you're struggling?
Yeah, I guess that the first thing that I would say is, what is a slump? What is a slump? Because I think at times when we think of slump, what ends up happening is you go 0 for 4, and then you start thinking, man, like I'm starting to lose a little bit and I'm not feeling as well. And then it streamlines into 0 for 7 and 0 for 8. And now you start thinking more and it's 0 for 12. And the reality is you probably would have stopped at 0 for 7, 0 for 8, whatever it is, had you not mentally let that take control over you. And so I think slumps in general, it just comes back to defining success. Because again, if a college coach, they're really not going to be obsessing over your batting average unless you're hitting 120 or something like that. I mean, then it might be obvious, but they have to make decisions on you so quickly that they don't have time to be dissecting a lot of this stuff. So long story short, it comes down to just defining success. So if you define success by hits, and being in a slump is going to be hard to get out of, because that's how your confidence is going to be determined, by whether or not you're getting hits. I remember one time I was watching. I loved watching Manny Ramirez play as hitter. I just thought he was just phenomenal. And the Dodgers came to Cincinnati one time, and Manny was playing there. And I remember reading before the game, they're like, "Oh, he's been struggling a lot lately, this or that." And then he goes 0 for 4 in the game. And then the next day, like, oh, like Manny's struggles still continue. And I'm thinking, like, he hit 3 balls that had to have been 110-mile-an-hour exit velocity, just line outs to people. And I'm thinking, like, this, I guess if stats and hits are what you want, then yeah, I guess he's struggling. But I just saw him barrel up 3 balls last night at the game. I mean, he looks pretty dang good to me. So again, if you define success by hits, then yeah, that you're slumping. So I guess in that scenario, like, Manny was slumping, even though he was just hitting missiles everywhere on the field.
Yeah. Is there, talk more about defining success versus like outcomes versus process?
If you pretty much can, I honestly feel I've spent so much time on the mental side of the game, working on that, hiring people to teach me experimenting on my own, me working with players, me dealing with mental stuff throughout my entire life, really, too. And I think that's what really drew me to it. Was kind of just, I was my first patient trying to fix myself. Defining success really determines everything, because if you want, there's not a player, a hitter on the planet who I could say to them, "Hey, would you want to be more confident in the box?" Like, when you're hitting your best, are you usually more confident or less confident? Probably going to say more confident. Okay, well then, like, let's take that a step further. Like, how do you get confidence? And you can get it. You can talk about preparation and all these things, of course, for sure. That definitely matters. But confidence is determined by how you define success. Because if you define success by getting hits, then your confidence is going to be determined by whether or not you're getting hits or not. Just the way it is. And that's, I would say, probably 95% of players at all levels, I would say, define success that way. But if you can get to a point where you're defining success by something you can always control, that's going to equate to maybe that better outcome, and then you only focus on that, and it's something you can control, well, now your confidence is obviously going to be much higher, because you can do it every time. Versus getting a hit, you can't control that. So because you can't control it, your confidence might go up and down. Versus something that you can control, now you're defining success by, and having the scoreboard be in your favor versus someone else determining it.
When you played, were you one of the people who were good at, did you define success as hits, or did you define it as, barrels?
Well, even that right there, like, even barrels, you technically can't control barrels, right? And that's the thing that I see a lot of people, where it's like, ask people how, what is a successful at bat, for example, and they'll talk about hitting the ball hard, barreling the ball, moving the runner, working the count, all these different things. Don't be wrong, like, they're all great, and I want you to do them. I got to be huge, but you technically can't control that. Like,
Hmm.
there's so few things that you can actually control. And what I always ask players is, like, hey, when you're hitting your best, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you doing? And it might be as simple as, I'm just really relaxed and I'm aggressive.
Yeah.
That's how you define success. Those two things. You do those two things over the course of the season. If you did those for every single at bat, do you think your numbers would be better or worse? I've never met anybody who actually committed to that, who had worse numbers and didn't have their best
Yeah.
year. So I think that's the thing to remember when it comes to that. But to your question, I mean, I didn't know about any of this stuff at all until I started coaching at all. So I defined everything by numbers, everything.
That's Joey Votto, right? He used to talk about, if I'm on time and I swing at my pitch, then I'm going to be successful no matter what the
Yeah, over the course
batting
of the
line is for
season,
that
and that's
day.
the thing.
Yeah.
Over the course of the season, and it's not about necessarily today or tomorrow, and that's what makes it really tough, because coaches are sometimes depending on who you are, if you don't get a hit today or whatever, you might be out of the lineup. And we have to be thinking about this from a 10,000-foot view. That might be the case, but I can promise you this, you chasing hits usually doesn't equate to you getting more hits.
Yeah. What if there's one thing that a kid absolutely must not do during the high school season if they're hoping to play at the next level, what's one thing they absolutely should not do?
I mean, it probably is gonna go back to something with the makeup piece again, where
Hmm.
they're showing somebody up. I mean, I say showing somebody up. I don't mean out of emotion, like they hit a big home run and they just do a bat flip out of emotion, but they're truly trying to show somebody up in the game. That might be something. And the coaches on one of their coaches for whatever reason, thinking that they know better. That's the thing. And then from a parent standpoint too, it's kind of the same thing as well as, you kind of have to watch what you do and say too, because I mean, think about it, Nathan, if you're a college coach and you go to a game, a high school game to watch a kid and you love the kid, great makeup, great everything. And then the parent is just, you hear so many horror stories about how they're constantly bombarding the coach about this and complaining about this or that, and they're spreading rumors about this or that. Like, man, do you want to be dealing with that too, or do you want to be dealing with the kid who's maybe just as good and has a family that's going to be supportive no matter what? So I think from a
Yeah.
parent standpoint as well, I think there's something to be said about having good makeup.
We got those of us kids like parents like me who've coached their sons the whole way. We have to go. Well, for me anyway, I'm going to take my chair and I'm going to go down behind the left field foul pole and watch the game from there if I have to. If I have
Someone I
to keep
talked
it
to
together.
a coach recently, and I forget what he said he said something to the effect of you can tell everything you need to know about a parent by where they sit at
Where
the
they sit.
where they sit at the game.
Oh, that's funny. This will be my first year, and I feel that comment so much because this will be my first year where my older son is. It's time for him to kind of advocate for himself and be his own player. And I've even had a conversation with the coaches that he's going to be playing for that like you're not going to hear from me. Like
Yeah.
he needs to stand on his own 2 feet. Like he won't get that from me. So that's a little different because I'm part of like I'm an assistant in that program, so I have to also draw clear lines around
Yep.
where I advocate because I don't want to be that parent and also be on staff. That would be double bad for the high school program. So, but there is something to that, like the makeup piece extends to the whole family. Because when a college coach is looking at a player, it's not just the player. It's everything they're going to have to be dealing with. At least that's what we've heard from some coaches.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, again, I always try to think of different situations and put myself in their shoes. So put yourself in a college coach's shoes. I mean, do you want to be getting emails on Monday morning after a weekend series about from a parent complaining about why Tommy
Didn't play.
didn't play and this or that? And then I mean, it's just you have enough stuff you're dealing with as a college coach as is.
Right. Well, if there's one thing that players and families should remember from this episode, what is it? What's the one thing they should take away from this?
The main thing is you have no idea what coaches are actually looking for when they're watching you. And kinda going back to that story I said earlier of, hey, one scout hated this guy, he called him a piece of crap, and then another scout's like, "We're gonna sign you, and I think you're gonna be in the big leagues." I mean, so there's gonna be people who really like you, and then there's people who for whatever reason, it just they don't think you're gonna be a good fit for them, and to not necessarily think that it's anything if you can take it personally if maybe that makes you play better, but I wouldn't take it personally in the sense of if that ends up discouraging you at all. So just go play because you don't know what they're looking for. A lot of times it doesn't always have to do with a specific outcome that you think they're wanting in terms of that specific game of getting a hit or striking a guy out or whatever it is. Like they also their job is to project because they're not recruiting you for tomorrow. It might be for next year, 2 years. And so they're also thinking about, okay, where's this kid going to be in 2 years? Because that's when he's going to be a freshman or whatever it is. And so I think that's the thing that the main takeaway is you don't know what they're looking for. And so because you don't know, you just got to go balls to the wall and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll end it there for this episode. Thanks, Patrick, for letting me put you on the hot seat again. I think we'll do more of these. It's good to hear your
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I enjoy doing these, and today I'm actually in a couple hours. I'm heading to the Oklahoma State Grand Canyon game,
Oh, that'll
which
be
will be a ton
awesome.
of fun, and looking forward to that, and watching a lot of college baseball.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
All right.